World Wide Web. What do you think is the meaning of the word World Wide Web? Any thoughts or suggestions? The World Wide Web is a group of computers that are connected together. They store information and send it out. The internet in the 60s was very dull and boring. It looked just like this, a black screen with yellow writing on it. You needed to do a lot of coding to arrive at the screen. And it had no music, no videos, no nothing. It was just writing and screen. But this is not how the internet looks like now. Now you have music, videos, emails, links, images, and more. For the internet comes in many forms and shapes for each user. In order to connect to the internet, you need a modem. The function of the modem is really a translator. It translates from the phone lines to the digital signal. For the phone lines are analog, but the computer functions in zeros and ones, which is digital. There's an analogy that explains that. You see, the phone lines are more like flowing water. Yep. And the computer speaks another language, the language of zeros and ones, which is more of ice cubes. Now the modem translates from the computer language to the phone line language and back from the phone line language to the computer language, which in other words is from zeros and ones to sine and cosine, and from sine and cosine to zeros and ones. Now a website is like a book with the table of contents being like a home page. Now, when you choose any item in the table of contents, you immediately jump to this page in the book. Now, a website should have a unified theme and sometimes even a unified topic. A website is stored on a server, which is a machine that is dedicated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to serve all the other computers in the internet. So you see, when one machine wants to view a website, it sends a request to the server to view this website, and the server sends the website back to the machine. To understand more how the internet works, you need to know what a DNS is. Now, a function of a DNS, which is a domain name server, is that when you say you're looking for a website, the website is called How Stuff Works, or Facebook. You enter the URL into your computer, and then the URL, which is the name of the website, is sent to a DNS server. The DNS server searches in its database for the IP address corresponding to the URL address. If it doesn't look, it could seek the helper and advice of another DNS server. Now, the DNS server looks into its database and finds out that the IP address corresponding to this URL, and there could be more than one IP, is say 70.42.251.42. It returns this piece of information back to the DNS server, which returns it back to the computer. Now, the computer, when you say that you're going to a certain website, for example, Facebook or howstuffworks.com, it goes directly to the IP address that you suggested. Because each machine on the internet has a unique IP address, and it's what identifies it, and it's what tells that this is the address of this machine. So whenever two computers talk together, they need to know the IP address of each other to be able to send messages to and fro between one computer and another. So, how does the internet work? You start at the browser. You send a request to the internet with the certain website that you want to view. Now, this request, the HTTP request, has two things. First of all, it has the URL. Yes, of course, the address of the website you want to visit. And it also has your own IP. Interesting. But why does it have your own IP? Well, that's pretty easy. And you can find the answer to that in normal mail. You see, when you send a letter to someone, you need to have two things. First, you need to know what is the address of the someone that you're sending the email to. As you can see here, this is the address. Also, you need to add your return address so that people can reply to you. Well, it's pretty much the same thing. You see, you need to send your own IP so the server can respond back to you with the website. Now, as we go along the way, the URL, the network does not understand that. So that's why we need the domain name server. As we've said before, the domain name server translates the URL into the server IP. So now you walk away with two things, the computer IP and the server IP. Well, that's easy. The server now receives a request to the website and it answers back. It has two things. The HTTP response would have the file you asked for, yes, and your own IP so it could reach you. So this is how, simply speaking, you can view a website on the internet. Finally, when you see this address, what do you understand? First of all, the HTTP. The HTTP, which is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Hyper, comes from HyperKid, which is very active. And hypertext means a jumping text, and this is usually referred to when you talk about links. Now, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, when I see it, immediately I understand that they're talking about an online website. This website is on the web. Now, the next part is the domain name, rats.com. What this means is that rats.com is the name of the server. Yes, as we said before, a domain name can be translated using a domain name server to a particular IP of the server. And of course, a domain name can have more than one IP, as than one server can host it. Now, next on the list is mice. And mice is the name of the folder in the specific server that hosts the website. So when we say mice/mice, this is the folder name. And finally, index.html refers to the very specific file that is inside the server that we are requesting. So again, a file in a folder in a certain server online. Just like saying a street in a city, in a country, in the world. Bye bye. See you next time with more information. This was Mary Victor.